Summary of Into the Wild by Jon Krakauer. Jon Krakauer, a journalist for Outside magazine, was given the task of reporting on the story when the body of a young male hiker was found in Denali National Park in Alaska. The young man turns out to be the runaway son of a well-off East Coast family named Christopher McCandless. After graduating from Emory University in May 1990, Christopher gave away his savings to charity, gave up his car, burned all of his cash, and hitchhiked across the country to live off the land in the Alaskan wilderness. 5 months earlier, on April 28, 1992, Jim Gallion was driving near Fairbanks, Alaska, when he saw a young man hitchhiking and offered to give him a ride. Christopher McCandless is the name of the young guy, but he calls himself Alex and says he plans to live off the land for a few months in Denali National Park. Gallion tries to stop Chris from going alone into the woods when he sees that Chris's backpack is way too small to hold enough goods for a long camping trip. Chris doesn't want to listen to Gallion's advice, so Gallion tells him to take his lunch and boots with him. Chris takes these gifts unwillingly and walks out onto the snowy Stampede Trail. Gallion thinks the boy will come back out of the bush when he's hungry. In September of that same year, a couple from Anchorage and an ATV driver are moose hunting in Denali National Park. They come across an abandoned bus and find Chris's body inside. The body is found by Alaska State Troopers, who take it to a crime lab. There, the cause of death is found to be hunger. 2 months after McCandless's body was found, Krakauer talked to Wayne Westerberg, who ran a grain elevator. Westerberg told Krakauer about the day he picked up Chris, who went by the name Alex at the time, on his way back to Carthage, South Dakota. Wayne gives Chris a job because Chris works so hard on Westerberg's grain mill crew. Wayne, on the other hand, gets arrested for taking satellite TV codes, which forces Chris to go out and look for work. Back in October 1990, McCandless' yellow Datsun is found abandoned in the Lake Mead National Recreation Area. Krakauer finds out through his study that after a flash flood soaked the Datsun's engine, Chris left the broken-down car to hide his situation from his parents and the police. Chris then takes rides with strangers all over the West. Along the way, he camps with drifters Jan Burrs and her boyfriend Bob, flips burgers at McDonald's in Bullhead City, swims down the Colorado River to Mexico, and makes friends with an 81-year-old man named Ronald Franz. Chris goes back to Carthage on March 14, 1992, to work for Wayne Westerberg. At the end of the month, he leaves, having saved just enough money and materials to follow his dream of living in the wilds of Alaska. Chris hitchhikes north and gets to Alaska on April 18, 1992. 10 days later, he crosses the Tucklanuka River and gets on the Stampede Trail. Chris finds an old city bus near the Sushana River and sets up camp there. Chris hunts and gathers food all summer, and at the end of the season, he kills a moose. Chris feels bad about killing the moose to save its meat, but through reading, keeping a journal, and thinking about himself, he comes to terms with it and chooses to go back to society. But Chris can't cross the Tucklanuka River because the ice on it has melted, so he goes back to the bus to get his thoughts together. On July 30, Chris frantically writes in his notebook that he is very weak and in great danger, but also talks about potato seeds. McCandless dies soon after because he is too sick to hunt or collect. During his last days, he learned that the best happiness in life comes from sharing it with others. Krakauer thinks that McCandless died of swainsonine poisoning because he ate wild potato seeds that had a poisonous mold on them and then ate them. After figuring out how McCandless died, Krakauer goes with Chris's parents, Walt and Billy, to pay their respects at the bus where Chris died. Even though the beauty of the area made them feel better, Walt and Billy left with sad hearts.
About the author. Jon Krakauer is an American author, journalist, rescuer, and climber who has won awards for his work. He is known for his books about the outdoors and his skill at writing repertorial narratives. At age 8, Krakauer's father taught him how to climb mountains. After he graduated from Hampshire College in 1976, he spent the next 20 years climbing mountains all over the world. In 1996, he climbed Mount Everest. After a storm killed the other 4 climbers on his team, he was the only one to make it back down the mountain alive. The event gave him the idea for his 1997 book, Into Thin Air, which went on to become a #1 New York Times bestseller and a Pulitzer Prize nominee. Into the Wild, which he wrote in 1996, stayed on the New York Times list of bestsellers for more than 2 years. In 1999, the Academy of Arts and Letters honored Krakauer's great writing and critical news by giving him an Academy Award in Literature. In 2003 and 2009, he wrote Under the Banner of Heaven, which was about religious extremism in the American West, and Where Men Win Glory, which was about pro football player turned Army soldier Pat Tillman. Krakauer's most recent book, 3 Cups of Deceit, came out in 2011. It looks into claims that Nobel Prize winner Greg Mortensen lied and cheated. As a bold and adventurous writer, Krakauer has continued to push the limits of his writing in places like Outside, GQ, National Geographic, Rolling Stone, Architectural Digest, The New Yorker, The New York Times, The Smithsonian, and Byliner.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.